Hey everybody, welcome to another Intro to HTML video. This video I'm going to talk about tables. Tables are used to hold tabular data. That sounds like kind of a recursive definition, doesn't it? It sounds like it's defining itself. What tables are used for is to hold data that you'd normally put in a table. So what is that? Well, oftentimes it's things like statistics. Oftentimes it's things like scientific data. It's any of that kind of data that is best visualized in rows and columns. Let's take a look at an example or two. I'm going to use basketball data. Right here I have a big table that shows stats for the Minnesota Timberwolves for the 2016-17 season. And you can see that it's got a series of rows, and for each row there's a series of columns. Each one of these columns is going to be a different statistical data point. For example, games played, points per game, points. That's what the columns are going to be. They're going to be our statistical data points. And then the rows are going to be our entries. So Karl Anthony Towns is one entry. And we're going to look at all of the statistical data points for that entry. And then Andrew Wiggins is another one. We're going to look at all the data points for that entry. And then Zach LaVine is another one. So you can see that a table makes sense for visualizing this data. Another good use for a table in this case, we've got the NCAA 2017 men's basketball rankings. And you've got the AP Top 25 and the USA Today Coaches Poll. And what you see is you've got the team and the rank, and you see the record and the total points. You might argue that Top 25 is better served as a list, which, you could do that. You could use an OL and make a list of the top 25 teams. But there are more data points than just the ranking and the team name. In this case, we're looking at record and points. And those help us, get a good idea of why these teams are at the record that they are at. So in this case, we've got the rank, we've got the team name, we've got the record, and we've got the total points. Okay? These are two examples of tables. Now let's take a look at how tables are made. We're going to look at tables as having a few different parts. A table can have a header. This part right here. The headers are usually going to be the column headings. They're going to tell what data points each of those columns are looking at. Okay? They're going to have a table body, which is all of the hard data that we're looking at. Sometimes a table is going to have what's called a table footer, and the table footer might be a bottom section that will summarize all the data in each column. These tables do not have a table footer. Sometimes the tables are also going to have a table caption. In this case, AP Top 25. In this case, the caption would be USA Today Coaches Poll. Let's see how we put this together with HTML. I'm going to make a table with a caption, a header, a body, and a footer. It all starts out like this. The root element. Table is the root element for any table. It's going to define the beginning and end of the range of our table. Tables are going to contain rows and columns. They're also going to contain head, foot, and body. They're also going to contain a caption. The first thing that we're going to see in the table is going to be the caption. And it looks just like this. Table stuff. That's my caption. Below the caption, I'm going to have my T head. The T head looks like this, and it defines the table's header. The table header is going to contain a series of, potentially a series of rows and columns, or just a single row and a series of columns. Next thing that shows up in here is the T foot. That's kind of weird, and I'll tell you why it's kind of weird, because the T body comes below it. You might say, well, why would I put the T foot above the T body? Don't we want the T foot to show up down at the bottom of the table? Normally in a table, the T head is going to show up right here. The T body is going to show up in the middle. And the T foot, let's just pretend that this is actually a T foot, which it's not. But the T foot would show up down at the bottom. Well, then why in the code do we put the T foot first? Well, the T foot, regardless of where we put it, is going to show up down at the bottom of the table. According to the specifications for HTML, it requires the T foot to show up above the T body in order for it to be valid code. So that's why we put it down below the T head. T head is going to contain a series of rows. Rows are made up with TR. TR stands for table row. You'll notice that I always get the opening tag and closing tag in immediately, and then I make some space. Once again, this is just good practice. It builds up a good habit to make sure that you don't miss any closing tags. You're going to notice that this simple table that I'm going to create is going to have a lot of nesting. We've got our outer table, we've got our caption, we've got our T head with a TR, we've got our T foot that's going to have a TR and some TDs. You're going to have a T body with a TR and some TDs. The nesting is going to get pretty deep. And we want to make sure that we're using good practice so that we don't get visually lost and disorganized and have a broken table and not know how to fix it. So you're always entering the opening tags and the closing tags at the same time to ensure that we always have them. That said, I've got my first row in my table. I'm going to add a couple of cells. TD stands for table data. Table data is going to make one cell. Columns are just going to be a series of cells within a row. I'm going to make this a 4x3 table. It's going to have 2 rows in the body, 1 row in the head, 1 row in the foot. And it's going to have 4 cells in each row. Header 1. I'm going to copy this, paste it, because we want 4 columns. Header 2. Header 3, header 4. Great. Now, the footer is also going to have a row in it. TR, TR. That establishes a row. Now I'm going to make 4 columns in it. A column is established with a TD, table data. Footer 1, and I'm going to copy this and paste it 3 more times. Footer 2, footer 3, footer 4. Okay, so I've got my header and I've got my footer of my table. T head, T foot. T head has a row, which is a TR, and it's got 4 cells. TD, 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 TD. T foot has a row and 4 cells. Now, I wanted to have 2 rows each having 4 cells in my T body. So that means I need 2 sets of TRs. I get my opening tags and closing tags in there immediately. Tab over. I'm going to start putting in my TDs. Data 1. Paste them. Data 2, data 3, data 4. I might even copy this and paste it down in the next row. Data 1, data 2, data 3, data 4. So I've got my T body with 2 rows, each row having 4 columns. I've got my T head with 1 row and 4 columns, my T foot with 1 row and 4 columns. And then I've got my caption. I'm going to save this and observe it in the browser. And there's my table. You can see my caption shows up centered, which is kind of cool. I've got my header showing up here. And I've got my footer down at the bottom. Remember I put in the HTML markup, the footer was right underneath the header? Well, the browser is going to shove that all the way down at the bottom of the table because it is our table footer. Pretty cool. So once again, the markup. T head, T foot. T body, each containing a series of rows and columns. our caption is up at the top. So that's the basics of tables. We're going to look in future videos how to style tables. How can we change the background colors of things? How can we change the way the fonts look? How can we change all kinds of qualities of that table? Thanks for watching.